Okay, today I'm going to make a side mount. I'm going to convert this garage door opener to a side mount unit, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I know there's a lot of good videos about that on YouTube and how to do it, and there's some really nice kits you can order to do this. So that part you can find quite easily. There's a lot of information on that. The part that I'm struggling with is one of the doors in my shop. This one is 12 feet high because I built a shed roof on the shop. As you can see, a single pitch roof, so I can put a hoist on the side of the shop. And this door is so heavy, even with the spring tension on, I can just barely get it to budge, and I can't lift it. I can't open it on my own. I don't have a chain, like a block for it with the gear reduction. Now the reason why I've got to modify this garage door opener is, one, I did make a high lift door. As you can see, the one rail is up quite high against the ceiling, so I wanted these doors to go up as high as possible. But because it's a single pitch roof, you can see that one still hangs down low. That's the best I could do. But I still don't want the door opener with the big rail and everything up top. I want to make a side mount that's going to tuck away in the side up there and be out of the way. So to avoid all that linkage, so you guys know, if you've watched any of these videos about converting these ones to side mount openers, you already know that part of it, that it's they do work. They're way cheaper. I bought this opener off of Kijiji, and in Canada land that's kind of like Craigslist, and it was $40. I didn't get any remote controls with it, but I'm not too worried about that, as most new vehicles come with remote controls in them. And I got another opener here for the smaller, the 9-foot tall door right there. I've got an opener for it, which I'm going to convert to side mount as well. And I've got a couple of remotes with it, so I can use those on this one as well. I'm sure they'll cross over, because as far as I know, the Craftsman and Steelcraft are all made by Chamberlain anyways, so they're all pretty much the same compatible openers. So I've opened this one up, and the reason why I've done that is because these things only lift about a 9-foot tall door. Even with your adjustment, this is the adjustment here that goes through the side, those two holes in the side of the opener here, as you can see. So that's your up and down. And all these two screws do is open up your door. Pardon me, they move those two contacts away from each other. So see, as I screw that one down, you can see the contacts moving down. It's pushing that little contact. See it in this one. So it's the same way. So when those are out of travel, when you've turned these screws as far as you can, that's as far as when they're maxed out. That's as far as the door will open. So if it's set at 9 feet maximum, there, it won't open it. It won't keep traveling and open a 12-foot door. There's a couple things that are going to add to this, and one is I've put a chain drive on it. So that's the sprocket that I've welded to a bearing collar, and I just welded it to this sprocket. I know I'm not crazy about welding things to shafts, but that's the way the original little bicycle chain sprocket was on there. It was welded to the shaft, so I just welded that one back on top of it. That's where you can buy those replacement shafts and stuff off eBay. They're all the same sprockets welded on. And then I got this sprocket from Princess Auto, and that's a weld-on application as well. And then I just got a 1-inch hub, sprocket hub, and this has got set screws in it. There. There's actually a screw in that one, so that'll work. Oh, that's on the keyway, so I'll have to take it out and put it in this one because I don't have a keyway on that shaft for the door. Anyways, that's no big deal. So this one's going to go on top, and I've got a 2-to-1 reduction drive. So if this thing, because I think it's 1-to-1 normally, so 2-to-1 reduction drive on this motor, and even if it was maxed out at 9 feet, it would probably open about 4.5 feet, which of course wouldn't work at all. But that's going to up the torque and make it into a 1 horsepower instead of 0.5 horsepower torque on this thing. So the way I'm going to deal with the travel problem is I'm going to disconnect. See, this is your common wire here on these contacts that limit the travel, and then there's this brown wire here and a yellow wire here, which is your up and down. So one's closed, one's open. Try and tilt this a bit so you can see a little bit better. There we go. And it's got this pinion down here that just, you'll see it turns and it screws this one up and down. If you've had the cover off one of these, you've probably seen all that. You can buy replacement parts for these. I was surprised how available they are, because this thing's like 21 years old now. It was built in 2000. but it's still okay. It's a little corroded. Some of the contacts were a little corroded on the board here. I took the board off because my back cover, the screw holes broke out because they were, you can see where the holes broke out on the bottom here, and it flopped down. It's supposed to be on there, and it was flopping down like that. So I just took the board off of it because I had a little bit of a difficult time getting these photo eyes figured out. So I'm going to show you what I did with the photo eyes, just to figure out if this thing, because the story was it worked when it was removed, and the guy got it out of a garage that they put a new one in or something. And there was nothing wrong with this one. It's just they changed the door configuration and went with a screwdriver. I can't remember what the story was. So he ended up with it, and he sold it to me on Kijiji. So I didn't know. He said it worked when it was removed. So you know how that is. It's a bit of a gamble. So what you got to do to find out if it works or not, of course, is make sure the think that they're on the door and lined up before it'll even turn on, before the door will even move. So I've just taped these two together like this, so that a guy that sells garage door openers showed me his little device that he uses to see if they work or not. And that's basically what he had done. He had his permanent, he had a piece of heat shrunk on there so it would never come apart. But I want to use these. I've got a couple sets. I've got an old set here from a door opener, another door opener that I've got there for the 9-foot door. So those came with that one. And then I bought a brand new set, and that's the ones I'm using now. Anyway, so when you're wiring this up, I was able to find a manual for this particular opener, thankfully free online. So you've got your wires going to your sensors here, black and white. And then if you look up here, I noticed these older ones only have 3 poles, 3 connections on here. The newer openers have a totally different configuration. There's like 4 connectors. This hole's for the button there, the orange button. The new ones have a purple button. So this is an older model, but I wanted that because I wanted the mechanicals, like these mechanical stops, so that I'll tell you how I'm gonna make it open a 12-foot door here in a bit. But first, I just want to let you know that the black tracer, so you got connections 1, 2, 3. The black tracer wire goes to the 24-volt connection number 1, or pardon me, 3. That's why it's black. Your white wires from these photo eyes, the solid white, go to connection number 2. Connection number 1 is for your doorbell switch, your opener switch that you put down on the wall of your shop, so you can touch that when you press it when you come into the shop. You don't need to use, so you know what I'm talking about anyway, so you get the point. Okay, so I've got those hooked up here. You can see there's our screws on the board for connections 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. Both my black wires go into my sensors, the black tracers, are on number 3. The solid white are on number 2, as indicated here. I was just playing around with it last night, and I didn't have the manual, so I was just hooking these up, and I think I had them hooked to 1 and 3 instead of 2 and 3. And the photo eyes would come on, but they would just flash, even though they were taped together and looking right at each other. And I was using these used ones, so I put the brand new ones together. It did the same thing. Then I finally did an internet search, found the manual, and figured out that's why this is color coded anyways. So that's how I figured it out. So I just thought I'd let everybody know that. Now I'm going to plug it in. Alright, now it's got power. And see how the photo eyes are solid orange and green. If the green light, if orange is solid and the green is flashing, that means that they're out of alignment. And that's what it was. Both of them were flashing when I had the wrong poles hooked up on the board here. Now they're both solid because I've got them hooked to the proper poles and they're taped together, so there's no way they can be out of alignment. So that's handled. 24-volt DC isn't going to zap you, so you don't have to worry about those poles. But these ones in here, some of these contacts are 120 AC. So be careful if you've got the cover open and you're working on those. So now we know that first thing I wanted to do is first order of business with this used opener, and I know it's quite old, and I was told that I gotta be careful because I shorted out the back of this when it was touching the metal there and it started smoking, but so far I don't think it wrecked anything. I was told that it worked when removed, but you never know. So the first thing I wanted to do was find out. So if you go connect these two, I've got a jumper wire here. This is DC, 24-volt DC, so I don't have to worry about this being a bare wire and zapping me. Come on now, little girl. It should open if I connect these two, but they're so corroded that it's kind of tough to get it to. Maybe I'll touch the button there first. Okay, I think that's the program button, if I remember correctly. came on, so I know I got power. There we go. Okay, so the reason why it's doing that is it thinks that the photo eyes aren't lined up. That's why it does that 5 clicks. That's strange because the photo eyes are lined up. I'll try it again. I had this thing working good last night. Come on, open. There we go. Okay, so see, you know when your door's up in the air and there's something, it thinks there's something underneath the door, and the photo eyes are sensing that. That's what's happening right now. So I have no idea why though. Okay. I'll try it a couple more times here. Okay. Let's I don't think that's gonna work either. Just gonna try and get these disconnected, but it shouldn't matter. It should just think that it's all the way down or all the way up. There we go. Now she's going. Okay. Now we can watch the limit switch go down. So I don't know. The problem now is I don't know if it's going up or down. I'll have to find out from the ladle on here which one's up and which one's down. Okay, see, now it went back. I don't know why it's doing that. It's going back up. Okay, there we go. Oh. So when I moved it there, something happened with maybe the photo eyes or so. Now, yeah, okay, I know what's going on here is the connections are so bad for my photo eyes. See, now the lights are out because these are all corroded up. So I just got to spend a little more time and clean these up. Anyway, I got to read the manual a little bit too and figure some of this out. So anyways, I just wanted to show you that it does work, so that's good. That's the first step. And the next thing is I'm just going to disconnect this common wire, is the one that connects to your high and low limit switch, your up and down limit switch. So to get more, this is going to be kind of a bit of work to do, but to get more travel out of this, I'm going to disconnect these wires, and then I'm going to add them onto some of this low voltage wire that you use for the photo eyes, because I got quite a bit of that left over. And I'm going to run a micro switch down here at the bottom of the door for closed, and then I'm going to put another micro switch way up at the top of the track on one side or the other, probably on the the close side to the ceiling. No, I'll put it on that side because the opener is going to be on that side. And then instead of just making contacts here, this will all be gone. These wires will make contact through a micro switch. That's how I'm going to get it to travel 12 feet up and down. So I'm really hoping that this works, because I've never done something like this before, but there's absolutely no reason why it wouldn't work, because the micro switches are normally open, so when the door hits the micro switch, it'll close, it'll connect these two wires, do exactly the same thing that this device is doing, except for it'll allow the door to, or the motor to lift a 12-foot door and close a 12-foot high door. So I'm going to start working on this today and get as much done as I possibly can. I've got the chain down at the shop, and I'm probably not going to go down there today, so I'll have to put the chain on tomorrow, but I can still figure out what directions, like how to mount this on the wall to make sure that this is going to have the proper, it's not going to try and close when the door is closed, have the proper rotation. Anyway, so I got a couple little things to play around with here. Now, that'll depend on where I mount it, how I mount it to the wall, but there's quite a lot of backing up there where I made sure I put extra backing on both sides where the outlets are on the walls. So it shouldn't be a problem mounting it. And this is a fairly strong frame here. I think that'll handle the power, and if not, I can always brace it. I'll build a brace for it. So that's where I'm starting out. I'm gonna fix this, get this back onto the cover and put the cover back on properly now that I know that it works, and I'll clean those contacts and stuff up. But anyway, this should be a finished project, and I haven't seen anybody else try this, so I thought I'd make a video of it. Okay, I'm out in the shop. I'm going to give an update here. I've done quite a bit of work on the door. I had some things not set up quite right. I had to do some tuning and whatnot because this half horsepower opener didn't seem to want to lift the taller door, but really this door isn't much bigger than, it's like an 18 wide by 6 or 7 feet tall, because I just cut the panels in half and made a 12 foot high by 9 wide. And they use half horsepower openers on those doors all the time. So it turned out that I had some other things wrong that I'm not going to get into on this video because it'll probably bore you to death, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to set this up because you don't make the same mistakes I did. That's what this channel's all about. Anyways, I put this brace up here because my first chain that I got was used. I didn't realize it was twisted, and it actually just twisted the motor sideways right away. Some guys I see don't put a brace on, they just screw into a stud on the mount there, and that seems to work pretty good, and probably would, but now I've got this brace here. Goes over to a stud there, I got a GRK in there, and then I got a GRK in the end. Might put one more in, but so far it's working okay. My sprocket isn't welded on perfect, so it does have a little bit of a wobble to it. So that kind of makes the motor move, and I don't want things coming loose because of that, so I might put another screw in. But anyways, what I ended up doing is I got the sprockets on there. This one's just got a set screw, a couple of set screws in there, and it just reaches the end of the shaft. So that slipped a couple times and started turning on the shaft, but I got it tightened up now, so it's just not much of the 1-inch shaft going through the sprocket. It's too bad that shaft wasn't a little bit longer, but anyway, it's working now. So what I ended up doing, I wanted to put both my micro switches right here, right nice and close to the motor. But as it turned out, I was going to put a stop on the bottom of the door, so when the door got up to here, it would hit the bottom, the open micro switch, and stop the door from moving. And I've got those wired into, like I showed you in the first video, the wires up in the motor from that mechanism there, which is just making contact and opening it when the door is at its maximum height or maximum, or when it's closed, fully closed. There's also these pressure settings up here that need to be adjusted, and that's so if it goes down and hits the floor, it doesn't keep trying to close, or if it hits something on the way up, or if you got your truck in there, somebody hits the button, if your truck's parked underneath the door or something else, it's not going to put a dent in it. So one of the pressure switches on here wasn't turned up enough and it wouldn't raise the door, so it was acting like it couldn't lift the door. I was a little worried about that, but that was the last adjustment I had to make. Trust me, I did a whole bunch of stuff before then. I had spring tension. I put a couple extra winds on the springs. Turns out the springs weren't marked properly and they were on the wrong way. So that's something you want to make sure to do. The door would just open about a foot and then it would close again. So it was acting like it was a pressure switch was part of the problem. It was doing what it was supposed to. I just had to figure out why it was doing that. Okay, now that I explained that, here's my closed pressure switch. And all I did was I took a little scrap piece of metal that I had, and this plastic, I'll tell you why that's on there. It doesn't need to be on there, but I just made it so you can see when the door is closed, it closes that normally open micro switch. I got these micro switches off of eBay, and they come in I think six at a time you get. They're pretty affordable. I don't know so I got a few spares. I don't know what the quality of them's like. And as you can see, they're just like any standard micro switch. There's if my camera focuses, anyway, there's normally open, normally closed, and your common. So you just got to hook your common wire from your door opener, which is the white one, and then hook to your normally open terminal. You want to hook either your brown or your yellow wire coming out of this particular opener. When that closes, then that'll do the same thing that mechanism up there was doing, connecting those two wires either at the top or the bottom of the door's motion, travel I should say, and it's going to open or close the door. If my camera would focus, you'll be able to see the wiring diagram, but anyway, it's like all micro switches have them, and it's pretty easy to do. Now the other switch, like I was saying, I wanted to put it down here, but if I put another stop like this one, another little arm on the door, there's too much stuff in the way on the way up. Also, I had to make sure that it wasn't going to interfere with this micro switch, and there's going to be a little bit of drift, as in the door is going to hit the switch. This one is not so bad because it hits the floor and the switch at the same time and shuts itself off. It has no place to go. On the way up, the door can still travel a little bit. It doesn't stop right away when it touches the switch. it cuts the power to the motor, but the door is still moving a little bit, so it's going to drift a little bit past that, and it'll bend the arm on the micro switch if you have it set up like this. That's why this piece of plastic is here, because I ended up, because I couldn't put the open micro switch here to stop it because there's too much stuff in the way on the track coming up. It kept hitting things and it just wasn't working. So I ended up going ahead and running a wire out to the end of the track. I'll zoom in so you can see where the micro switch is. There it is there. And you can see I got a piece of plastic on that. So that's with my camera today. In any case, what happened was I put the micro switch out there, and I'm going to use the same stop that I'm using for the closed switch. So it's this one is going to hit. So I just opened the door and unplugged the motor from the outlet when it got to full open, or where I wanted it to open. Then I went down there and used a marker to mark where the track where the door stops its travel. And that's where I mounted the micro switch. However, like I say, I knew there was going to be some drift, and sure enough, this thing hit the micro switch, kept traveling, and bent the arm of the switch. So that's why I put this piece of plastic on there, but then the plastic would hit here, and a lot of things would interfere with that. So I ended up just putting a plastic lever on the switch itself, on the arm of the switch, and moving the switch over more, so that what's going to happen is the door will go up and the arm on the door will hit that piece of plastic. And the plastic that I'm using is just pieces cut out of a windshield washer fluid jug. You can see it there. Oh, I gotta hold my camera more steady. So that's what that is. So the door can hit the door, this arm on the door can hit that. Sorry about the filming, I'm on a ladder here. There's the jug I was cutting the pieces of plastic out of. It's cover for the motor here I haven't put on yet. I've still got to clean up this wiring, make sure it's all zip tied up and stuff and out of the way, and it'll look neat. I'll show you when I'm done what it'll look like. I'm gonna clean that up though. So that when the door keeps traveling anyway, that piece of plastic will just bend, and it won't bend the switch or damage the switch, but it will still close the switch. So then the door is going to get its signal to stop opening. And I've also got the chunk of metal bent out on the track, so that if it did try to keep opening, I'm going to put a bolt on the other side of that track on over there. You can see I've got my hoist set up here. And the door tracks, I wanted to make this a high lift door, so if I got something, I'd never have anything that would be higher than that top bar on the hoist, obviously. But if I wanted to open the door and lift a vehicle up, there's no way this door's ever, or this, when the door's lifted, it's never going to interfere with whatever's on the hoist. Where you can see with the 9-foot door, that'd be different. See how low the tracks come for the 9-foot door. So I do like the idea that I was able to put this door higher. Anyways, I'll show you. Got my switches here. I put in my doorbell switch down below, but I haven't wired it up yet, so I'm just using these, and I'll show you that this does indeed open and close. There you go. All the way out. Okay, so there we go. It's opened right up. Let's see there. So I get the full 12 feet. So you can see the door seal down there. So it opens right to the max. Okay, now let's close, and I'll show you how the other micro switch works. Here comes the arm. There we are, closed up again. You can see that closes the switch, and I can bend this. It's hard to move the switch because I got it screwed. See that one screw's coming right out through the wood block there. So, but you can bend these arms on the micro switch, and I can bend this piece of metal too that I've got screwed in up here. A couple of sheet metal screws holding that in. Alright, so that's my 12-foot door opener conversion to it's not really a jack shaft, it's just a side mount. You can see it up there, so that's out of the way. Again, I didn't want the stuff hanging on the middle of the ceiling here on a high lift door with a vaulted, like this not vault, but a single pitch roof, shed roof like that. I didn't want to spend $500 on the big side mount jack shaft style opener. So that works good. Once I get the wires cleaned up and I get the cover put back on it, it'll look really good. If you are having problems or you're wondering about how much power you need to lift a door that big, I looked at the commercial style openers for bigger doors, and what I was going to do, because I thought when this one wouldn't open, I thought maybe it was something to do with a power problem, and it just wasn't, the opener just wasn't strong enough to lift the taller door. So I was going to build a reduction drive, and this is what it would look like. I just got a couple pieces of channel iron there. If you look at the higher power door openers, that's all they have is they have a belt drive that goes to a jack shaft with a chain on it, and the chain goes from your reduction drive to your door. Just like what I've got set up there, but just another reduction. So basically, if I was going to use this, what I was going to do is have the chain on the opener go to this sprocket here. This is just a piece of conduit that I'd put a 1-inch piece of bar stock through there. Got 2 pillow block bearings on channel iron, and I just screw these into somewhere where there's good backing into the studs in the wall, so they might be spaced out 16 inches or so when I was all said and done. And then line this one up for the opener. Like, you can see how deep of a reduction that would be. The opener would turn this one, and then this one would go from this jack shaft to another, so I'd need 2 chains of course, and it would go from that jack shaft to the drive to open the door right beside that cable drum. So there's a couple things I had to do. I ended up making, like I said, to put a couple extra turns on the springs because the opener was having a hard time lifting, and you might find that you have to do that. You'll find you can turn the springs by hand the first couple turns. These ones, there's a couple videos explaining how to do it, but save you watching those maybe. But if you're figuring out your turns on your door springs, pardon me, remember red, at least the people that I was dealing with painted red on all the stuff that goes on the left hand side. So you can see the red mark there. And also there's a black, you'll see a black mark on the right hand side. So black is right. I don't know why, like right starts with R and so does red. And I've seen other places where red should mark the right side, but with garage doors it doesn't, it marks the left side. I don't know about the springs, like I think there was a little bit, there might have been a black mark on that one. These springs I think both had red marks. See, you can see one there and a red mark on there. And so if that happens, just go and even take a look at another door spring and make sure you got them on the right sides, because from left to right, if you get those backwards, they're going to bind up and cause all kinds of problems, and sometimes it takes a little bit to figure it out. Don't ask me how I know. Okay, so black on the right, red on the left. And this is a 12-foot high door. This has got, most residential overhead door setups are going to have a 4-inch drum. So that drum there is 4 inches in diameter. That equals about 12 inches in circumference, close to it. This is a 12-foot high door, so you're going to need 12 full turns on your door springs. And since you turn the springs with a quarter turn at a time, you got to times your 12 feet by 4 quarter turns, which is going to be 48 quarter turns. And there's lots of videos showing how you focus camera, how you turn those. So I just built a set of rods. You can use a rebar. I think 10M rebar works good. I didn't have any 10M kicking around, so I ended up building these. This is just like a piece of bar stock I used for a punch over the years, and this one I had to weld a little smaller piece on the end. It worked fine for what I needed to do. Don't need any fancy tools for that. And then it's just a 3/8 wrench to tighten up your set screws when you do get your door springs tensioned to where you want them. And then like I say, you check and see. I'd unhook the chain, take the chain off the opener, make sure that was all free. Tension the springs, and then come down and try and lift your door. And some guys even say they'll tension the springs up enough that the door is almost a little bit off the ground, and then because your springs are going to settle a little bit. Photo eyes are pretty simple too. These ones are for a smaller track, unfortunately, so I got these brackets which make things really easy if they would clip onto the track, but they're not the right ones. I think I'm using Steelcraft stuff, and you can see that these are way too narrow to fit over top of the door track, so I just put a 2x4 block there. That moved them out far enough. Let's see. when they're not lined up, it'll flash at you or go out. Okay, maybe the other side will. But that's pretty easy to do. I was able to find a manual for this particular opener, even though it's an old one. Here it is here. Steelcraft door product. So this, like I say, this was an old opener. I got it used. Still works fine though. And the reason why I like the idea of just using one of these older half horsepower openers is there's lots of them around and they're cheap. Like this one I paid $40 for. I just saw another one come up online for $15. Probably buy it for a spare if Calgary wasn't 2.5, 3 hours away from me. It's actually 4 now with the highway closure. So next time, but I'll keep an eye out, and when I'm in the city, maybe I'll pick up a spare. I've got another one for the other door, and I'll be definitely making it a side mount as well. Where's it sitting? It's sitting over here. This one I think I got for like 45 bucks. It's a little newer. This one is a Craftsman, but it's the same thing. And since this one will, I believe this will open a 9-foot tall door, I can just use the adjustments on the door. I don't have to take it apart and put micro switches on. I don't think. If I do, that's no big deal, because I got like another 4 micro switches that I can use for that. The nice thing about that one is it came with all the openers and stuff like that. I got all my stuff laying in a box here. So I got photo eyes and I got the remotes for it. There's one of the switches that goes on the wall. Got some more brackets. So that's the thing, is when people replace these things, a lot of times, here's the remote here. So that's nice to have. A lot of times they'll just take everything out and you can buy the whole lock, stock and barrel. So if that motor ever goes on me, or that opener, it's easy to take the chain off, cut the sprocket off the shaft, and then just put a whole nother one up. It's all set up now for those ones. The Craftsman and the Steelcraft, I believe, are all the same. It's going to be easy to replace. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you guys. Got doorbell switch down here. That's really basic, just an open switch. It's going to be my wall switch there. I might move it up the wall a little bit so I don't have to connect it to those wires. I can just run it straight to the motor and skip a connection there. I don't like to connect wires anymore than I have to. Then I'm just going to zip tie up that wire that goes to my rear my rear switch, limit switch. See it up there. Just to tidy that up, I'm going to run it right inside that track there. Like I said, I would have rather have mounted it up there, but it was hitting a bunch of stuff. Like you can see how tight it is down here. I had a little lever of metal sticking out here that I had screwed into the door. It came out to like this here, but as it would go up, it was catching on things and bending. That's right, I didn't have it sticking out that way. I had it sticking out past the track that way, and I was hitting on my mounts and stuff like that as it went up, and it was bending and just causing a bunch of problems. So unfortunately I had to run a wire to the end of the track up there. It's no big deal. I'd rather have a switch up there and run a little extra wire than have a switch down here at the bottom. That's originally what I was planning on doing, is putting the micro switch in the bottom, but that's not a great place for it, because it would be, it'd be more vulnerable to getting hit and stuff up there. Here's the lever I had. And same thing, I put some plastic on it so it could go past all this stuff, and the plastic would just bend as it went past and then flip back, but it just didn't work out. See how it's all bent up and stuff. So that wasn't the best idea, but it's trial and error with some of this stuff. You got to figure out what works and what doesn't. So I thought I'd make a video and show you guys what I found works and what doesn't. Like I say, I did a lot of figuring on this one. I thought I'd have it done in an afternoon after work one night, but I've been working on it for a little bit here and there for like kind of embarrassing, about a week I think now. But anyways, that was welding hubs on sprockets and chains, getting chain lengths figured out and making new chains, because the old one that I salvaged wasn't such a good idea using that. Building brackets, measuring, stuff like that, and then wiring, of course. So yeah, it took me a little bit of time, but if it was all set up and you had all the stuff, you didn't have to order anything, you had it all sitting there, it wouldn't take that long to make a nice little side mount door opener set up like this. Okay, I finally got this project completed. Got the cover back on the door opener, so it looks a little cleaner now. I got the wires kind of tied up. I just don't have the ladder over there, so I'll just zoom in. So I used the bigger chain on this one. Of course, it's going to be under a little bit more tension because of the taller door, but if the springs are set right, it shouldn't be too bad. But the main reason I used the bigger chain is just because I had some that was never going to be used, so I was able to make use of it here, which is good. And I've got my switch down here. Didn't even realize it was illuminated until I put it on there. I'd rather not have it using power, but it's probably just one little LED, so no big deal. Then I've got my switch up there. That's all wired up and it's working, so like I showed in the video. The last one, focus, there we go. And I just tucked that up inside the outside rail of the door, and I put some hangers in there that just glue on and some zip tied it up. So everything's working. I guess I've got to program. I'll have to get the ladder back over here and program an opener for it. Program my truck to open it. And I just wanted to show what I did on the other door that's only 9 foot tall. So 9 foot tall. These openers from new will handle a 9 foot tall door, I'm told. So I'm just going to adjust this one up. This is a newer model, so it's more digital controls on it than it is like the old one where it had all that manual control. So I might pick one of those up for a spare, because it'll be tough to convert one of these newer openers with the different sensors and stuff like that in them to work on the 11 foot tall door with the way I've got it set up with the micro switches and stuff. But I'm not too worried about that. I'll just grab one. You can get they're readily available. Used. So, and this one's fairly newer one. This is a pretty nice opener. Picked this up off Kijiji as well. So this one I just used a bicycle rear sprocket, or as the mountain bike guys have their fancy name for it, a cassette. And then what I did is I took a locking collar from a 1-inch bearing, welded it onto the cassette or the rear sprocket. So you can see where I welded it on there, and it's got a couple of set screws in the bearing collar, at least one, which I think it's going to slip a little bit. I might drill a hole through the whole thing and put a pin through there so I can just pop the pin out if the power goes out and I can still open the door. I haven't planned how I'm going to do that yet, but I will figure out how I'm going to do it on that one as well. Or I'll just use my backup generator and get power in here if the power goes out. So I just used a scrap piece of wood for a brace on this one. And I bolted it to the wall with a couple GRKs there. It kind of sucked it in, and then the sprockets wouldn't line up, and then it would throw the chain, or double link the chain and stuff. So now she's working. I don't have it plugged in right now, and I don't really want to open the door to show you because I haven't got the stop set on it, for one thing, and the other thing is it's pretty cold out. We just got a little cold snap this winter here, and the last one we'll get, I'm sure. But it's pretty cold at night right now, so I don't want to let all the heat out. Finally got my heater hooked up, and it's going to be a high power bill if I keep letting the heat out, opening the big doors. I know you got to once in a while, but it's not necessary anyway. And since I started, I'm glad I'm done the door project, because now I got this project, and you're going to see the whole procedure, pulling the engine. Tomorrow after work I'm going to pull the engine. It's just about ready. And then you'll see the videos of rebuilding it and everything that I'm going to do with that. Alright, so I hope everybody benefited. So this is a 9 foot wide by 11 foot tall door again. I've been working on it for a while. Finally, it's nice to get it done. I'm going to call this one done. I've still got to put some paneling up there and stuff and cover the insulation and whatnot. Still working on the shop, but it's getting there. So I've got my little eyes and everything all wired in. It's actually not a bad job at all. And it's nice that there's a lot of support, a lot of videos on how to do this on YouTube. And this is just another one of how to make a side mount opener. So it's so nice, especially on the lower side, to not have the linkage and everything hanging off the ceiling over there. I don't have the lift there, so it wouldn't have mattered, but it's just so much more clean having the side mount opener. Alright guys, well, I'm going to go back in and edit this video up, and then tomorrow I will finish the engine removal video on my Summit T3 there and post that up as well.